In my A2 Advanced portfolio, specifically on my blog, I uploaded several posts discussing the idea to implement a specific scene from G. Capolo's Palo Alto 2013. In the specific scene in the coming-of-age style movie, I intended to take influence from a specific scene which the character Freddy talks about a girl who tends to get too drunk on the weekends and parties, and that monologue by the character Fred is juxtaposed by the imagery of her on a swing set and playing in her garden. And I thought that was a great idea to use against the backdrop of a graveyard for Snap Snap Bang, using the character of Contestant 2 to openly outline his fears of going to the club, which is where the Snap game is actually held in the movie, in the short. And I felt like him displaying his fears against going and the ominous presence of the club being talked about over the phone against the backdrop and the foreshadowing of the graveyard, and as the filmed in real lighting, it shows the night getting darker, which I thought was a great way to represent his fear growing and growing. In my research stages of A2, I looked into Lady Gaga, specifically her videos Paparazzi in 2008, Bad Romance 2009, and Born This Way 2011. Initially, it didn't seem possible to tie the music industry, hypocrisy and prejudice into either my AS or A2, but the subtle allusions to a higher or supernatural power were incorporated subtly into my AS, and more so into the A2, with the looming presence of a club owner, which is never seen, but using the mise-en-scène of the club and what we gather from external information about the club used to represent a higher power, which takes its victims or contestants. A fair amount of research was dedicated to the understanding of B-movies, such as Sharknado 2013 or Birdemic 2010, focusing on Asylum Studios from my A2 blog, which I wrote various essays on surrounding how I wanted to create an authentic, cheap B-movie feel to my thriller fic, and not have it appear to be unconventional or cheesy or untrue to genre. In creating my first few drafts for my A2 script, I had a particular shot in mind which I drafted out on paper and in my mind. We'd be tracking Contestant 2 as he walked down through the layers, going slowly down into the club, which would both visually show his progression down into the club, but also the passage of time, which is then picked up on as we properly get into Act 1 of the short. Unfortunately, however, I couldn't quite source the scene which I wanted to implement and take influence from, which I believed it was from Carter Smith's The Ruins 2008, but unfortunately I couldn't source it. My main goal was creating an authentic underground club feel, which was to ensure it sounded and felt like an underground real bunker. In doing so, I sourced footage onto my blog from David Fincher's Fight Club 1999. The embedded clip saw Tyler Durden first establishing the rules of Fight Club, took influence from the decor, and also sourced sound effects which amplified the room, creating echoes and water drops and other things. I went as far as to spray olive oil mixed with water onto the walls to create a feeling of damp on the walls. The emotional anchor and protagonist Contestant 2 in Snap was designed based on the research I conducted through my target research. The decision here was to not only create a sense of familiarity between the audience and the character, but to allow for easier emotional connection. The familiarities and characteristics also allowed for some believability in the choices to which Contestant 2 made, because I felt like in the thriller and horror convention especially, the audience's believability of the character rests on their choices that they make, either being chased by the antagonist or whether they decide to fight back or run. And I felt like if I didn't make the key anchor of emotion in Contestant 2 believable, then he would be more of a blank slate and just a generic horror thriller stock character, instead of someone people can relate to and believe.